Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the studio with me, my guests, Simi Adejumo. Simi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
All right, good to have you in the studio today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Now, Simi, let's dive in quickly. Our time is it's running. You grew up in the city of Ibadan. I like to call it the ancient city of Ibadan, where you have the brown rusted roofs. Tell us about growing up. I mean, how was growing up for you in that city of Ibadan?
For me, growing up was fun. I could call myself the black sheep of my family.
Black sheep, okay.
Exactly.
You don't look like a black sheep though.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out that I could change that once I grew up. But then growing up, I think I had the best of several worlds. I grew up with a really loving family. Also had a family of professionals. The good thing is, every time my aunts, my uncles came home, I was really impressed with their careers and how much they'd been able to do. And I was like, wow, I really want to be like those people. I really want to do something. I really want to be a professional. I really want to be influential in whatever I do. And also their principles and their morals actually, shaped me into the kind of person that I am today.
Okay. So to a large extent, their life, impacted on you positively.
Yes.
Okay. Now tell us about schooling. Where did you school and how was schooling for you?
Schooling was good. I think from a very young age, I was categorized as a brilliant kid. However, in school, my grades didn't really show that I was brilliant.
Okay.
My mom was always talking to my teachers about, my grades being very poor, and I still remember a particular comment at the end of one term that, oh yeah, he's a very nonchalant student. So I think schooling was here and there. I changed schools. I think I went to 3 secondary schools at least, if not 4.
What schools?
I started at ISI when my mom was tired of my, nonchalant and naughty behavior. She tried to, scare me by putting me into one public school. It didn't really work, and then she found out that this could actually backfire. And then from there I went to Maverick College, and then after that, I went to American Christian Academy.
All in Ibadan?
All in Ibadan.
Wow. Okay, that's great. So from there, you proceeded to study at the University of Ife or Bafemi University. You studied technical engineering or
chemical engineering. Yeah, so I knew, after schooling in Ibadan all through, I knew that, I actually wanted to run away from my folks and just have my freedom in Ife. Anything outside Ibadan was it for me.
Ife was close by?
Well, at least my parents would just come in every time and say they wanted to come and see me. Ibadan was really, really close by. UI was just like at my backyard.
Okay.
So
that wasn't an option for you?
It was not an option at all.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So went to Ife, and I think I had a difficult time settling into Ife because of the nature of the person I was.
Okay.
Ife was a really great school. I had great colleagues, but then it was just like, you had to, fall into the norms. You had to understand how lecturers graded students if you wanted to make good grades, and which was very difficult based on my
person.
Exactly, person and disruptive nature.
Okay, great. So, growing up, you claim that you didn't know what to do in particular with your life. From the onset, but of course, at the point you discovered that you had some creative abilities, and then you delve into video content development. Tell us about that experience.
Right. So, like I said, growing up, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. It was like, there was a time, I wanted to be a doctor. There was a time I wanted to be a lawyer. There was a time I wanted to be an engineer.
Every child goes through that.
If it was, during secondary school, it was good. But it was...
As an undergraduate?
As an undergraduate, I considered, dropping out of engineering to do law. There was a time I considered dropping to do economics. Even up to my 300 level, I think I was still writing SATs in my 300 level, just to say, I really didn't feel this engineering thing. But then in school, I always helped friends who were creating videos. So there was this particular friend of mine who had like a vlog. She was always doing these things about dating, and I was always coming up with creative ideas for her, like, oh, you know what, just don't do the norm about talking about boyfriend, girlfriend relationship. Talk about, what people feel, how people feel related to life experiences. And then I found out that, I had a computer, so I found video editing software is really good, so I was able to help with editing videos. That was how I got into that creative line of work. I also did a bit of graphic designs for people, all for free then. If I don't, I would have been charging being a millionaire by now.
I can imagine. Now, you went to MIT. I mean, from what I know, MIT has an amazing entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Right.
I mean, how much did that impact on you?
Right, I think the MIT experience was the first real experience that I realized that I could channel my creativity into something really, really productive. It was a system whereby they really valued the creativity and entrepreneurship, and the pattern of learning, they called it like drinking from a fire hose.
Okay.
It was a really intense one whereby for creative people, they pick things, they drop things, they pick things, they drop things, they pick things, they drop things. But then you were able to intensively focus on one particular thing at a time and test it out to see if it works. And if it works, then continue focusing.
If it doesn't,
drop it and pick something else.
Okay.
I mean, for them, I know that MIT, if it was a country, they would be the 11th largest economy in the world due to the number of entrepreneurs they've churned out.
I can imagine. All right, so I mean, you are a trained engineer turned, should I say, tech entrepreneur now?
Yeah.
How did you make that shift?
So it was interesting. I was actually doing an internship with Total EMP in Lagos, and I was with the commercial department, and it was fun to an extent. It was engineering, but then it was more like a routine for me. It was like once you basically grasp what was being done,
just keep doing it over.
Just keep doing it over and over and over again, and you're fine, and you get promoted, and you live a good life. But then during that same period, I found out about a particular social entrepreneurship competition. That's the Holt Prize, and it was geared towards helping people get access to healthcare in the poor or rural communities. So I looked at it and it was like, okay, yeah, this is something I could put my creative thought to. And that was the journey to entrepreneurship. Even though I didn't go far in the competition, but then it was afterwards that I decided, oh, you know what, let me go for an entrepreneurship course at MIT. And it was after the MIT that I then became a product developer for a wedding tech startup. Basically, what we were doing was really creative and trying to use people's data to predict their behavior, because we found out that whenever people want to get married, it's two different people, and they come in with conflicting thoughts about, okay, this is how I want my wedding, this is not how I don't want my wedding to be. So we were trying to see how we would get data to actually say, you know what, this is where both of you would be on the middle ground. So yeah, that was what we did.
Okay, how did that work out?
So interestingly, we needed a feminine touch as a CEO. So, but however, the CEO was pregnant, and she was like, you know what, I need some stability in my life, and entrepreneurship is so unstable.
I can imagine. Now, you said a healthcare company called Adejumo. How do you call that?
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, anyway.
Okay. Now, you later shut it down. Tell us about the company and why did you shut it down?
Well, it's a difficult one. But basically, the company had a good name out there. People liked it. Not only in Nigeria. I know we were part of the Harvard African Business School conference, the top 10 enterprises for the year, I think 2015. Plug and Play tech ecosystem wanted to invest in it. We also got investors who invested in it. We worked with universities. We worked with Bells University. We worked with Oyewole University Health Center. And however, we found out that because it's healthcare, we needed, and because we were using algorithms, basically I can say a computer, to actually detect and actually provide solutions to people's health. It needed to be as accurate as possible. If not, maybe I'll be in jail by now. So what we required, it required us to have data to an extent. So we realized that it would be very difficult to get the money we needed to get that data. We needed to digitize data, and most hospitals in Nigeria actually did not have data in digital format. They had it in paper format. Some are lost, and some they're just not accurate to an extent. And then the data we used to create the initial algorithm focused mainly on students, so that's young people. And for healthcare has to be personalized. It has to be tailored towards the particular use case of the person. So if I use students' data to create an algorithm, and then I come to Lagos to treat people, give or take, there will be a lot of inconsistencies. So in terms of specific metrics, we achieved about 76% accuracy, and I think that's about 7 in 10 people. So give or take, maybe 3 every time.
I can imagine. All right. So at that point you had to shut it down.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you want to kill 3 people out of every 10, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about Accounteer. What exactly is Accounteer? What do you guys do?
Accounteer is a cloud accounting solution in simple terms.
Okay.
For what most people can relate to. But however, we see ourselves as a growth engine for SMEs. And this is born out of the need to actually scale SMEs across that 5-10 year gap. We see most businesses doing well for 5 years, 10 years, and then something happens. Maybe the founder, travels, is ill, or passes away, and that business can be passed to the next generation. Or, he grows old and it can be passed to the next generation. But we see that, with data, it is actually very possible to move and help people make decisions. So with that data, if I transition that business to another person, then the person can see what has been done over time. The person will understand the decisions that have been taken previously and can work with that data to scale that business. In more practical terms, there are family-owned businesses in almost every country. I mean, in New York, you'll see family-owned bakeries. They're small businesses, but then, people, the children go to school and then come back to those businesses, and that is really what we're trying to achieve. In the long run, we see that, if we can achieve this, then, we'll be able to boost the economy, employment, and then we'll see that, businesses can stay within families, because I would say from data, and in Nigeria, we have about 20 million people in Lagos, and give or take, and I'm very sure from data that there are over 10 million businesses in Lagos. So that's 1 out of every 2 people, and those 2 people belong to a family, and those families will reproduce. So if we can actually scale those businesses for the 10-year gap, the 20-year gap, not even looking at adding more revenue or adding more staff, then we would be able to cater for generations of families.
So in other terms, you guys provide accounting services.
Yes.
Software accounting services to smaller companies.
Yes.
Okay. So how's it been so far? I mean, what's been the response from small businesses? Because for the young, for the average businessman, I mean, he doesn't keep data, like you said. I mean, we don't have data. He just believes, I make 10 naira, then my profit is these and these. Sometimes people even spend profits alongside, the initial capital, and the average guy does not keep records. So how have you been able to make the average young businessman understand the fact that, look, you need to keep data, you need such a service?
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting. It's one of the things that that keeps us up at night almost all the time. The fact that people just believe that there's money in my bank, then my business is doing good. And at first, when I joined Accounteer, I actually thought that pen and paper will be our competitors, but we see that people's entrepreneurs' bank statements is the major competitor here, because once I see money in my bank statement on my bank, then I think I'm good. And that my bank statement also serves as my accounting records. But it's actually not so. You don't know which is your liability, you don't know which is your revenue, you don't know the supplier you're owing money, you don't know all those kind of things. So at the end of the day, you need to keep records. In terms of how we've been doing, we have about 8,500 users at the moment.
8,500.
8,500. That's accurate.
Okay.
However, we focus on a Pan-African approach, not dwell alone on Nigeria. So out of that 8,500, we have about 3,500 from Nigeria. Ghana and Kenya are next biggest markets. We also have both an English and French version. So for francophone speaking, for francophone countries in Africa. But then, in trying to change people's behaviors and how they value data, we see that almost every business needs to send an invoice to an extent. So whenever they close deals, like try to encourage them, just use the invoice part. When you use the invoice, then you're creating the accounting entry. So at the back end, the software does almost everything for you, generating that report, financial advisory, business intelligence, all that we intend to do as we grow.
So is this now seeming like robots taking over people's jobs as accountants?
I wouldn't say so. I think at the end of the day, an accountant is still valuable in the entire value chain. I think what it is we're bringing the glory back to accountants because
they can do their work seamlessly.
they can do their work seamlessly.
Okay.
One, they don't have to be data analysts.
Okay.
Data entry staff, because
Okay.
at the end of the day now accountants have been reduced to data entry staff, and what we're trying to do is bring back the glory and say, you know what, accountants are meant to be working in financial advisory and telling my boss, like, you know what, this is what the books are saying, this is the interpretation of the books. That is what we're doing at
More like you're giving them tools to work with.
tools to work with. And in fact, we actually partner with accountants. We have over 200 accountants on our platform, and they've been really instrumental to our growth so far.
Oh, that's great. So, I mean, tell us about the challenges. I mean, you guys are facing as Accounteer. What has been a challenge, or challenges as the case may be?
Yeah, so the major challenge
I mean, the company is barely 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
yeah, I think a bit above 2 years actually.
Okay.
Majorly, our major challenge, it really hasn't been growth, but it's actually, the major challenge has been educating people on the need for accounting.
Suspected.
Because I remember a conversation I had with some entrepreneur, and he was like, I've been running this business for about 7 years. I've never used a physical accountant. I've never even used an accounting software.
So tell me why I need one now.
Tell me why I need one. I like your solution. I saw your solution. It says it helps my business grow. How would this help my business grow? So that's
Convincing such a person.
convincing such a
is the
person
challenge.
that, okay, you know what, not from the accounting perspective, from the growth perspective, like what specifically is this going to do to help me grow, not accounting here. So that's also sometimes it's a challenge, but again, we go around that by giving people the dream, the goal of the solution and what this thing can do for you. Because such a person uses Microsoft Word, actually is a bit advanced. He uses Dropbox,
Okay.
puts his invoices on Dropbox, so he can actually send invoices on the go. So if I
Okay.
tell you can send invoices on the go with my solution, you're like, okay, I can do that with Dropbox. But then I tell you, but with Dropbox, you can't aggregate those invoices. You
Yeah.
can't see your highest paying customers. You can't see your lowest paying customers. You can't see the suppliers you owe. You can't see your ratios. You can't see your asset to liability ratio, your income to liability ratio, and your several ratios you can actually see. You can get a lot of financial advisory and business intelligence with that.
All right, Lagos, you're listening to Simi Adejumo. He's the country manager for Accounteer. In a bit, we can take a few calls. If you put your call in through fast, you know the numbers to call. You can put your call through, and then we can take those numbers in a bit. So, the numbers to call, I mean, for those who are listening, you know the numbers to call, and then these are the numbers you can call. All right, this is Nigeria Info, and those are the numbers you can call. As we go on, Simi, now, let me ask this question after Accounteer now. How easy has it been, or how easy do you think, well, let me say, how easy or difficult do you think it is for startups to thrive in Nigeria? Considering the fact that the recent Ease of Doing Business report of 2018, okay, we have a call. Let's take that call quickly, please. Hello, good morning. I think we lost the call. All right. The recent 2018 report on ease of doing business ranks Nigeria on number 145. That's ridiculously low. So how easy or difficult is this for startups like your company to thrive in a place like this?
Right. I would say very difficult, not even difficult. But I wouldn't even take it from the perspective of startups alone. I'll take it from people who are running businesses. First, it's very difficult to open a bank account. Secondly, it took us about 3 months.
You haven't going far. It's difficult to open a company, to register a company.
Yeah, that's what
it's a little easier now, but it still can get easier. It should be much more difficult than it is right
it took
now.
us 3 months to open a company, so it was really difficult. For a bank account, I think, you open the bank account and you think you have a bank account, but then they say there's something called search internally, you can't use the bank account, and then you put your money there, and then when you use the money, you can't touch the money right now. And then Nigeria seems like the place whereby, you want to do business and you want to bring money, and they're like, oh, no, we don't want your money. We like how things are going. But then for SMEs, what we've noticed is different businesses have different modes of operation. And
Okay.
it's not because they don't want to have a standardized format. It's just because for each sector there is regulation there. So I mean, housing, I have to do things in one way. I mean, entertainment, I have to do something in that particular way. So for us as a business, we see that we have to customize our solution to almost every sector. So SMEs is not just broad, and also we've also found out that there is actually no metric for what an SME is. So it's really difficult. A lot of standardization will play a huge role in making things easier. In addition to standardization, lesser regulations and redundant regulations will also help.
Lesser regulations or more structured and more definitive regulations?
I think I'll go with lesser regulations because there's so many regulations. There's so many agencies.
You're lost. Which one do we even comply with?
That's the thing, and overlapping agencies also play a role.
That's a big challenge. That's a big challenge. All right, Simi. At this juncture, let me ask you: what are the values that have helped you? Let me see if I can pick this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Oh, I think we lost the call. All right. What are the values that you would say have shaped you and helped you over these years?
Right. I think they're always changing, but then I think I was able to put it into probably two things.
Okay.
First, I always like to take myself as I'm not special.
Okay.
And it comes from the fact that whenever I think of myself as special, then I feel that ego can actually come in when you feel yourself
That's more
special.
like saying humility.
Well, yeah, I call myself humble, but I don't
You're trying to be humble, yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't really call myself special then,
Okay.
because whenever you're special, then you think, oh yeah, you've achieved the peak, and you're not able to learn anymore.
Okay.
And then the first one also ties to the second one. Then I'm always open to being wrong, and it's like you have a conversation with somebody, you make a decision, know that you could be wrong and you could be right.
Okay.
So if I'm wrong, then I know that I've learned something from that scenario, and then it helps me grow
So
personally.
more like you value knowledge.
Oh yeah, I value knowledge. I read a lot, so it's one of the most interesting things about me.
Okay, so why are mentors? I mean, do you have any mentors in life generally or in the business world? Are there mentors you look up to?
I don't think I would have a particular individual that I look up to.
Okay.
But then, in terms of mentors, I think relationships with people. One thing I know is that everybody that I've met has played a huge role in my career so far.
Okay.
From family to friends to acquaintances. They've at one point or the other they've always taught me something. So I think everybody I've met has mentored me.
Okay. Now, where do you see yourself, I mean, in the next 10, 15 years?
Wow, that's a long way. I actually don't think that far. But then I will start from Accounteer. First, I think I see myself in 15 years having a nice holiday.
Okay. In Ibiza?
Ibiza will be nice.
Okay.
Beach and sunny weather and nice drinks.
Career-wise?
Career-wise, so I see myself probably with another startup.
Okay, I was about saying that are there new startups in the offering or something? Okay.
At the moment, no startup coming from me.
Okay.
But then Accounteer-wise, I see Accounteer having grown and expanded outside Nigeria and gaining a strong foothold. In Nigeria, we see ourselves as the desired choice for entrepreneurs, and it's what we actually want to do is when you're starting a company, you know that in addition, next thing you do after starting a company is sign up for an Accounteer account.
Okay.
It's just like starting a company and opening a bank account, starting a company and opening an Accounteer account.
Okay, that's great. Now, on a last note, I mean, you've been into business for a while now.
Right.
What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs like yourself? I mean, we have loads of young guys in Nigeria who are into business or work, aiming to go into business. I mean, what advice would you give a young person like yourself who wants to delve into the business waters?
I think the most important thing in business is networks. make sure you have good relationship skills. If you don't have it at the moment, try and build it. Make sure you're able to relate with people. Make sure you can. There's one thing I always tell people: make sure you can argue from the other side. If somebody's telling you something, make sure you try and understand his own viewpoint. Because I'm saying something and you don't agree with it, doesn't make it wrong. And because saying something and you agree with it doesn't make it right.
either.
So make sure you understand where the person is coming from. When you understand where this person is coming from, because I see everything as relative and statements as opinions too. Because at the end of the day, we're shaped by our environment, and you're from a different environment. I'm from a different environment.
At the end of the day, we are shaped by our environment. On this note, we're going to call it a wrap today on the role model. Now, don't forget that you can always follow us on social media at IMA for Impact, and of course at Value Lines. And of course, you can also suggest to us which role model you would like to have on the show via any of these social media handles. Don't forget again that the show comes our way every Monday from the hours of 10:30 a.m. Let's make it a date again next week. Until then, do have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye.